Second. Yes.
Vivo.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Jnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupah Kada Mahyam Dadati Svapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yutapadakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam tam sajivam sadvaitam savadhutam parijana sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindho Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopisha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhyeva cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Presthaya Bhutale Shrimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pashtya Deshatarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhaktavrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare.
Haribol. Thank you, Prabhu. So, which chapter it was? Pranjal Prabhu, do you remember? Was it this?
Yeah, probably that was the chapter because I was
I think we
reading the previous one. Yeah.
this deliverance of Shishupala.
Yeah.
It's chapter 20. Okay, Haribol. Chapter 20. Why Duryodhana felt insulted at the end of the Rajasuya sacrifice. King Yudhishthira was known as Ajatasat Shatru, or a person who has no enemy. Therefore, when all men, all demigods, all kings, sages, and sages saw the successful termination of the Rajasuya Yagna performed by King Yudhishthira, they became very happy. That Duryodhana alone was not happy was astonishing to Maharaj Parikshit, and therefore he requested Shukadeva Goswami to explain this. Shukadeva Goswami said, My dear King Parikshit, your grandfather, King Yudhishthira, was a great soul. His congenial disposition attracted everyone as his friend, and therefore he was known as Ajata Shatru, one who never created an enemy. He engaged all the members of the Kuru dynasty in taking charge of different departments of the management of the Rajasuya sacrifice. For example, Bhishma Sena was put in charge of the kitchen department, Duryodhana in charge of the treasury department, Sahadeva in charge of the reception department, Nakula in charge of the store department, and Arjuna was engaged in looking after the comforts of the elderly persons. The most astonishing feature was that Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, took charge of washing the feet of all the incoming guests. The queen, the goddess of fortune, Draupadi, was in charge of administering the distribution of food, and because Karna was famous for giving charity, he was put in charge of the charity department. In this way, Satyaki, Vikarna, Hardikya, Vidura, Bhurishrava, and Santardana, the son of Balika, were all engaged in different departments for managing the affairs of the Rajasuya sacrifice. They were also bound in loving affection for King Yudhishthira that they simply wanted to please him. After Shishupala had died by the mercy of Lord Krishna and had become merged in the spiritual existence, and after the end of the Rajasuya Yagna, When all friends, guests, and well-wishers had been sufficiently honored and rewarded, King Yudhishthira went to bathe in the Ganga. The city of Hastinapura is today standing on the bank of the Yamuna, and the statement of Srimad Bhagavatam that King Yudhishthira went to bathe in the Ganga indicates, therefore, that during the time of the Pandavas, the river Yamuna was also known as the Ganga. While the king was taking the Avabrita baths, different musical instruments such as mridangas, kanchal drums, kettle drums, and bugles vibrated. In addition, the ankle bells of the dancing girls jingled. Many groups of professional singers played venas, flutes, gongs, and cymbals, and thus a tumultuous sound vibrated in the sky. The princely guests from many kingdoms like Srinjaya, Cambodia, Kuru, Kekaya, and Koshala were present with their different flags and gorgeously decorated elephant chariots, horses, and soldiers. All were passing in a procession, and King Yudhishthira was in the forefront. The executive members, such as the priests, religious ministers, and brahmanas, were performing a sacrifice, and all were loudly chanting the Vedic hymns. The demigods, the inhabitants of the Pitraloka and Gandharvaloka, as well as many sages, showered flowers from the sky. The men and women of Hastinapura, Indraprastha, their bodies smeared with scents and floral oils, were nicely dressed in colorful garments and decorated with garlands, jewels, and ornaments. They were all enjoying the ceremony, and they threw on each other liquid substances like water, oil, milk, butter, and yogurt. Some even smeared these on each other's bodies. In this way, they were enjoying the occasion. The professional prostitutes were also engaged by jubilantly smearing these liquid substances on the bodies of the men, and the men reciprocated in the same way. All the liquid substances had been mixed with turmeric and saffron, and their color was lustrous yellow. The order to observe the great ceremony, many wives of the demigods had come in different airplanes, and they were visible in the sky. Similarly, the queens of the royal family arrived gorgeously decorated and surrounded by bodyguards on the surface of different palanquins. During this time, Lord Krishna, the maternal cousin of the Pandavas, and his special friend Arjuna were both throwing the liquid substances on the bodies of the queens. The queens became bashful, but at the same time their beautiful smiling brightened their faces. Because of the liquid substances thrown on their bodies, the saris covering them became completely wet. The different parts of their beautiful bodies, particularly their breast and their waist, became partially visible because of the wet cloths. The queens also brought in buckets of liquid substances and sprinkled them on the bodies of their brothers-in-law. As they engaged in such jubilant activities, their hair fell loose and the flowers decorating their bodies began to fall. When Lord Krishna, Arjuna, and the queens were thus engaged in these jubilant activities, persons who were not clean in heart became agitated by lustful desires. In other words, such behavior between pure males and females is enjoyable, but persons who are materially contaminated become lustful. King Yudhishthira is in a gorgeous chariot yoked by excellent horses, was present with his queens, including Draupadi and others. The festivities of the sacrifice were so beautiful that it appeared as if Rajasuya was standing there in person with the functions of the sacrifice. Following the Rajasuya sacrifice, there was the Vedic ritualistic duty known as Padni Samya, Padni Samyaja. This sacrifice was performed along with one's wife, and it was also duly performed by the priests of King Yudhishthira. When Queen Draupadi and King Yudhishthira were taking their Avabrita bath, the citizens of Hastinapura as well as the demigods began to beat on drums and blow trumpets out of feelings of happiness. And there was a shower of flowers from the sky. When the king and the queen finished their bath in the Ganga, all other citizens consisting of all the Varnas or castes, the Brahmanas, the Kshatriyas, the Vaishyas, and the Shudras took their baths in the Ganga. Bathing in the Ganga is recommended in the Vedic literatures because by such bathing one becomes freed from all sinful reactions. This is still current in India, especially at particular auspicious moments, At such times, millions of people bathed in the Ganga. After taking his bath, King Yudhishthira dressed in a new silken cloth and wrapped and decorated himself with valuable jewelry. The king not only dressed himself and decorated himself, but he also gave clothing and ornaments to all the priests and to the others who had participated in the yagnas. In this way, they were all worshipped by King Yudhishthira. He constantly worshipped his friends, his family members, his relatives, his well-wishers, and everyone present. And because he was a great devotee of Lord Narayana, or because he was a Vaishnava, he therefore knew how to treat everyone well. The Mayavadi philosophers endeavored to see everyone as God in an artificial way towards oneness. But a Vaishnava, or a devotee of Lord Narayana, sees every living entity as part and parcel of the Supreme Lord. Therefore, a Vaishnava treatment of other living entity is on the absolute platform. Since one cannot treat one part of his body differently from another part because they all belong to the same body, so a Vaishnava does not see a human being as distinct from an animal because in both of them he sees the soul and the supersoul seated simultaneously. When everyone was refreshed after bathing and was dressed in silken clothing with jeweled earrings, flower garlands, turbans, long wrappers, and pearl necklaces, they looked altogether like the demigods from heaven. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. This was especially true true of the women who were nicely dressed. Each wore a golden belt around the waist. They were all smiling. Spots of tilka and curling hair were scattered here and there. This combination was very attractive. Persons who had participated in the Rajasuya sacrifice, including the most cultured priests, the Brahmanas who had assisted in the performance of the sacrifice, the citizens of all Varnas, kings, demigods, sages, saints, and citizens of the Pitriloka, were all very much satisfied by the dealings of King Yudhishthira, and at the end, they happily departed for their residences. While returning to their homes, they talked of the dealings of King Yudhishthira, and even after continuous talk of his greatness, they were not satiated, just as one may drink nectar over and over again and never be satisfied. After the departure of all others, Maharaja Yudhishthira restrained the inner circle of his friends, including Lord Krishna, by not allowing them to leave. Lord Krishna could not refuse the request of the king. He therefore sent back all the heroes of the Yadu dynasty, like Shamba and others. All of them returned to Dwaraka, and Lord Krishna personally remained in order to give pleasure to the king. In the material world, everyone has a particular type of desire to be fulfilled, but one is never able to fulfill his desire to his full satisfaction. But King Yudhishthira, because of his unflinching devotion to Krishna, could fulfill all his desires successfully by the performance of the Rajasuya Yagya. From the description of the execution of the Rajasuya Yagya, it appears that such a function is a great ocean of opulent desires. It is not possible for an ordinary man to cross over such an ocean. Nevertheless, by the grace of Lord Krishna, King Yudhishthira was able to cross over it very easily, and thus he became freed from all anxieties. When Duryodhana saw that Maharaj Yudhishthira had become very famous after the performance of the Rajasuya Yagya and was fully satisfied in every respect, he began to burn with the fire of envy because his mind was always poisonous. For one thing, he envied the imperial palace which had been constructed by the demon Maya for the Pandavas. The palace was excellent in its puzzling artistic workmanship and was befitting the position of great princes, kings, and all leaders of the demons. In that great palace, the Pandavas were living with their family members, and Queen Draupadi was serving her husband very peacefully. And because in those days Lord Krishna was also there, the palace was also decorated by his thousands of queens. When the queens with their heavy breasts and thin waists moved within the palace, and their ankle bells rang very melodiously with their movement, the whole palace appeared to be more opulent than the heavenly kingdoms. Because a portion of their breasts was sprinkled with with saffron powder. The pearl necklaces on their breasts appeared to be reddish. With their full earrings and flowing hair, the queens appeared very beautiful. After looking at such beauties in the palace of King Yudhishthira, Duryodhana became envious. He became especially envious and lustful upon seeing the beauty of Draupadi, because he had cherished a special attraction for her from the very beginning of her marriage with the Pandavas. In the marriage selection assembly of Draupadi, Duryodhana had also been had, sorry, in the marriage selection assembly of Draupadi, Duryodhana had also been present, and with other princes he had been very much captivated by the beauty of Draupadi, but had failed to achieve her. Once upon a time, King Yudhishthira was sitting on the golden throne in the palace constructed by the demon Maya. His four brothers and other relatives, as well as his great well-wisher, the Supreme Personality of Godhead Krishna, were present, and the material opulence of King Yudhishthira seemed no less than that of Lord Brahma. When he was sitting on the throne surrounded by his friends, and the reciters were offering prayers to him in the form of nice songs, Duryodhana with his younger brother came to the palace. Duryodhana was decorated with a helmet and he carried a sword in his hand. He was, he was always in an envious and angry mood, and therefore on a slight provocation he spoke sharply with the doorkeepers and became angry. He was irritated because he failed to distinguish between water and land. By the craftsmanship of the demon Maya, the palace was so decorated in different places that one who did not know the tricks, uh, where is it? Um, yeah, when yes, one who did not know the tricks would consider water to be land and land to be water. Duryodhana was also illusioned by this craftsmanship, and when he was crossing water thinking it to be to be land, he fell down. When Duryodhana, out of his foolishness, had thus fallen, the queens enjoyed the incident by laughing. King Yudhishthira could understand the feelings of Duryodhana, and he tried to restrain the queens from laughing. But Lord Krishna indicated that King Yudhishthira should not restrain them from enjoying the incident. Krishna desired that Duryodhana might be fooled in that way, and that all of them might enjoy his foolish behavior. When everyone laughed, Duryodhana felt very insulted, and his hair stood up in anger. Being thus insulted, he immediately left the palace, bowing his head. He was silent and did not protest. When Duryodhana left in such an angry mood, everyone regretted the incident, and King Yudhishthira also became very sorry. But despite all occurrences, Krishna was silent. He did not say anything against or in favor of the incident. It appeared that Duryodhana had been put in the illusion by the supreme will of Lord Krishna, and this was the beginning of the enmity between the two sects of the Kuru dynasty. It appeared that it was a part of Krishna's plan in his mission to decrease the burden of the world. King Parikshit had inquired from Shukadeva Goswami as to why Duryodhana was not satisfied after the termination of the great Rajasuya sacrifice, and thus it was explained by Shukadeva Goswami. Thus ends the Bhaktivedanta purport of the second volume, 20th chapter of Krishna, why Duryodhana felt insulted at the end of the Rajasuya sacrifice.
Ribble, he thought water was land.
Yeah. I remember this episode when I watched Mahabharata TV series. That was funny.
Also, like, remember that part really vividly, that where he fell so
Yeah,
hard.
I mean, probably we can also, maybe after this session, we can find this short clip. I'm sure it's uploaded how he fell.
Yes, Prabhu. And then everyone was laughing, and Krishna didn't even stop them from laughing. This was like transcendental bullying.
Yeah. Yes. Now it's more cyberbullying.
Yeah. Okay, this next chapter then. Let's read it also. The battle between Shalva and the members of the Yadu dynasty. While Shukadeva Goswami was narrating the various activities of Lord Krishna in playing the role of an ordinary human being, he also narrated the history of the battle between the dynasty of Yadu and a demon of the name Shalva, who had managed to possess a wonderful airship named Sauba. King Shalva was a great friend of Shishupala's. When Shishupala went to marry Rukmini, Shalva was one of the members of the bridegroom's party. When there was a fight between the soldiers of the Yadu dynasty and the kings of the opposite side, Shalva was defeated by the soldiers of the Yadu dynasty. But despite his defeat, he made a promise before all the kings that he would in the future rid the whole world of all the members of the Yadu dynasty. Since he defeated in the fight between the Since his defeat in the fight during the marriage of Rukmini, he had maintained within himself an unforgettable envy of Lord Krishna. And he was in fact a fool because he had promised to kill Krishna. Usually such foolish demons take shelter of a demigod like Lord Shiva to execute their ulterior plans. And so Shalva, in order to get strength, took shelter of the lotus feet of Lord Shiva. He underwent a severe type of austerity during which he would eat no more than a handful of ashes daily. Lord Shiva, the husband of Parvati, is generally very merciful and he becomes very quickly satisfied if someone undertakes severe austerities in order to please him. So after continued austerities by Shalva for 1 year, Lord Shiva became pleased with him and asked him to beg for the fulfillment of his desire. Shalva begged from Lord Shiva the gift of an airplane, which would be so strong that it could not be destroyed by any demigod, demon, human being, Gandharva, Naga, or even by any Rakshasa. Moreover, he desired that the airplane be able to fly anywhere and everywhere. He would like to pilot it, and be specifically very dangerous and fearful to the dynasty of the Yadus. Lord Shiva immediately agreed to give him the benediction, and Shalva took the help of the demon Maya to manufacture this iron airplane, which was so strong and formidable that no one could crash it. It was a very big machine, almost like a big city, and it could fly so high and at such great speed that it was almost impossible to see where it was. And so there was no question of attacking it. Although it might be dark outside, the pilot could fly it anywhere and everywhere. Having acquired such a wonderful airplane, Shalva flew it to the city of Dwaraka, because his main purpose of obtaining the airplane was to attack the city of the Yadus, toward whom he maintained a continual feeling of animosity. Shalva thus not only attacked the city of Dwaraka from the sky, but he also surrounded the city by a large number of infantry. The soldiers on the surface began to attack the beautiful spots of the city. They began to destroy the baths, the city gates, the palaces, and the skyscraper houses, the high walls around the city, and the beautiful spots where people would gather for recreation. While the soldiers were attacking on the surface, the airplane began to drop big slabs of stones, tree trunks, thunderbolts, poisonous snakes, and many other dangerous things. Shalva also managed to create such a strong whirlwind within the city that all of Dwaraka became dark because of the dust that covered the sky. The airplane occupied by Shalva put the entire city of Dwaraka into distress equal to that caused of the earth long, long ago by the disturbing activities of Tripurasura. The inhabitants of Dwarakapuri became so harassed that they were not in a peaceful condition for even a moment. The great heroes of Dwaraka city, headed by commanders such as Pradyumna, counterattacked the soldiers and the airplane of Shalva. When he saw the extreme distress of the citizens, Pradyumna immediately arranged his soldiers and personally got up on a chariot, encouraging the citizens by assuring safety. Following his command, many warriors like Satyaki, Charudeshna, and Samba, all young brothers of Pradyumna, as well as Akrura, Kritavarma, Bhanuvinda, Gada, Shuka, and Sarana, all came out of the city to fight with Shalva. All of them were great fighters. Each one could fight with thousands of men, and all were fully equipped with necessary weapons and assisted by hundreds and thousands of chariots, elephants, horses, and infantry soldiers. Fierce fighting began between the two parties, exactly as was formerly carried out on between the demigods and the demons. The fighting was very severe, and whoever observed the fierce nature of the fight felt his hair stand on end. Pradyumna immediately counteracted the mystic demonstration of occasion by the airplane of Salva, the king of Sauba. By the mystic power of the airplane, Salva had created a darkness as dense as night, but Pradyumna all of a sudden appeared like a rising sun. As with the rising of the sun, the darkness of night is immediately dissipated, so with the appearance of Pradyumna, the power exhibited by Salva became null and void. Hare Krishna. Pranjal Prabhu, you can also read if you want.
Each and every one of Pradyumna's arrows had a golden feather at the end, and the shaft was fitted with a sharp iron edge. By releasing the 25 such arrows, Pradyumna severely injured Salva commander in chief. He then released another 100 arrows towards the holy body of Salva. After this, he preached each and every soldier by releasing one arrow, and he killed the chariot driver by firing 10 arrows at each of them. The carriers are like the carriers like the horses and elephants were killed by the release of such arrows. The three arrows directed towards each one of them. When everyone present on the battlefield saw this wonderful feast of Arjuna, the great fighters on both sides began to praise his acts of chivalry. But still, an aeroplane occupied by Salva was very mysterious. It was so extraordinary that sometimes there would appear to be many aeroplanes in the sky, and sometimes it would be seen that there was none. Sometimes it is visible, sometimes it was not visible, and the warriors of Yadu dynasty began puzzled about the whereabouts of the particular aeroplane. Sometimes they would see the airplane on the ground, and sometimes they would see it flying in the sky. Sometimes they would see the airplane resting on a peak of a hill, and sometimes it was seen floating in the water. The wonderful airplane was flying in the sky like a firefly in the wind. It was not steady for even a moment. But despite the mysterious maneuvering of the airplane, the commanders and the soldiers of the Jedi dynasty would immediately rush toward Selva wherever he was present with the airplane and the soldiers. The arrows released by the dynasty of Yadus was brilliant as the sun and as dangerous as the tongues of serpents. All the soldiers fighting on behalf of Selva became soon distressed by the instant release arrows upon them by the heroes of Yadu dynasty, as Selva himself became unconscious from the attack of these arrows. The soldiers and the fighters fighting in behalf of Selva were also very strong, and the release of their arrows harassed the heroes of Yadu dynasty. But still, Yadus were so strong and determined that they did not move from their strategic positions. The heroes of Yadu dynasty were determined to either die in the battlefield or gain victory. They are confident of the fact that if they would die in the fighting, they would obtain heavenly planet, and if they would become out victorious, they would enjoy the world. The name of Cell Commander in Chief was Duman. He was very powerful, although bitten by 25 Padumna's arrow, he suddenly attacked Padumna with his fierce club and struck him so strongly that Padumna became unconscious. Immediately there was a roaring. Immediately there was a roar. Now he's dead. Now he's dead. The force of the club of the chest on the chest of Padumna was very severe, enough to tear the stomach chest of the ordinary man. Padumna's chariot was driven by the son of Dwarka. According to Vedic military principles, The chariot driver and the hero on the chariot have to cooperate during fighting. As such, it was the duty of the chariot driver to take care of the hero and the chariot during the dangerous and precautious fighting on the battlefield. Thus, Daruka removed the body of Bhimraj from the battlefield, and 2 hours later, in a quiet place, Bhimraj regained his consciousness, and when he saw that he was in a place other than the battlefield, he addressed Cheltri and condemned him. Oh, you have done most abominable and abominable act. Why have you moved me from the battlefield? My dear Chattier, I have never heard that anyone in our family was ever removed from the battlefield. None of them left the battlefield while fighting. By this removal, you have you have overburdened you have overburdened me with a great defamation. It will be said that I left the battlefield while the fighting was going on. My dear chariot, I must accuse you. You are a coward and an emasculator. Tell me how can I go before my uncle Balaram and before my father Krishna? And what shall I say before him? Everyone will talk about me and say that I fled from a fighting place, I inqu- and if they inquire from me about this, what will be my reply? My sister-in-law will play jokes upon me with sarcastic words. My dear hero, how have you become such a coward? How have you become such a eunuch? Have you become so low in the eyes of fighters who opposed you? I think, my dear character, you have committed a great offense by removing from the battlefield. Charity, the charioteer of Edmund replied, my dear sir, I wish a long life for you. I did not do anything wrong, as it was my duty of the charioteer to help the fighter in the chariot when he is in a precarious condition. My dear sir, you are completely competent in the battlefield activities. It is my it is the mutual duty of a charioteer and a warrior to give protection to each other in various conditions. I was completely aware of the negative principles of fighting, and I did my duty. The enemy of the enemy all of a sudden attacked you with his club so severely that you lost consciousness, and you were in such a dangerous position, condemned by your enemies. Therefore, I was obliged to act as I did. Thus ends the second chapter of the second volume, 21st chapter of Krishna the battlefield named Selva and the members who did dance.
Very well. Thank you so much, Prabhu. Okay, so tomorrow we continue from chapter 22. Now let's go to Shastakam prayers.
Very well. I found this clip.
Yes, Prabhu.
पुत्र अंधे होता है क्या?
Yeah, Prabhu. I felt like this when I fell with that scooter today. It was like the situation was like this.
Pranjal Prabhu, it's okay. Yeah.
I was confused.
अंधे का पुत्र अंधा होता है क्या?
Ribo. चेतो दर्पणमार्जनं भवमहादावाग्निर्वापनं श्रेयः कैरवचन्द्रिका वितरणं विद्यावादुजीवनम् आनन्दं बुद्धिवर्धनं प्रतिपदं पूर्णामृतस्वादनं सर्वात्मा स्नपनं परं विजयते श्रीकृष्णसङ्कीर्तनम्
नाम्नामकारि बहुधानि च सर्वशक्तिस्तत्रार्पितानि यमितः स्मरणेन कालः एतादृशी तव कृपा भगवन् ममापि दुर्दैवमीदृशमिहार्जनि नानुरागः
त्रिनादपि सुनीचेन तरोरपि सहिष्णुना अमानिना मानदेन कीर्तनीया सदा हरि
आनन्दतनुज किङ्करं पतितं मां विषमे भवाम्बुधौ कृपया तव
Lord.
पादपङ्कज
This one.
Oh, sorry. न धनं न जनं न सुन्दरीं कवितं वा जगति शिखामये मम जन्मनि जन्मनीश्वरे भवतद्भक्तिरहैतुकी त्वयि
ऐनन्दतनुजा किङ्करं पतितां मां विषमे भवां बुधौ कृपा तव पादपङ्कजास्तितधूलिसदृशं विचिन्तय
नयनं गलदश्रुधारया वदनं गद्गदारुथया गिरा पुलकैर्निशितां वपुः कदा तव नाम ग्रहणे भविष्यति
युगायितं निमेषेण चक्षुषा प्रविश्यायितं शून्यायितं जगत्सर्वं गोविन्द विरहेण मे
आश्लिष्यवापादरतं पिनस्तु मामदर्शनं मार्महदं करोतु वा यथा तथा वा विदधातु लम्पतो मत्प्राणनथास्तु स एव नापरः
Ribo, glory to the Sri Krishna Sankirtan, which cleanses the heart of all the dust accumulated for years and extinguishes the fire of conditional life, of repeated birth and death. This Sankirtan movement is the prime benediction for humanity at large because it spreads the rays of the benediction moon. It is the life of all transcendental knowledge. It increases the ocean of transcendental bliss and it enables us to fully taste the nectar for which we are always anxious.
O my Lord, your holy name alone can render. Sorry, 1 second. Yeah. O my Lord, your holy name alone can render all benediction to living beings, and thus you have hundreds and millions of names like Krishna and Govinda. In these transcendental names, you have invested all your transcendental energies. There are not even hard and fast rules for chanting these names. O my Lord, out of kindness, you enables us to easily approach you by your holy names, but I am so unfortunate that I have no attraction for them.
One should chant the holy name of the Lord in a humble state of mind, thinking oneself lower than the straw in the street. One should be more tolerant than a tree, devoid of all sense of false prestige, and should be ready to offer all respects to others. In such a state of mind, one can chant the holy name of the Lord constantly.
O Almighty Lord, I have no desire to accumulate wealth, nor do I desire beautiful women, nor do I want any number of followers. I only want your causeless devotional service birth after birth.
O son of Maharaj Nanda, Krishna, I am your eternal servitor, yet somehow or other I have fallen into the ocean of birth and death. Please pick me up from this ocean of death and place me as one of the atoms at your lotus feet.
O my Lord, when will my eyes be decorated with tears of love, flowing constantly when I chant your holy name? When will my voice choke up, and when will the hairs of my body stand on end at the recitation of your name?
O Govinda, feeling your separation, some considering a moment to be like 12 years or more, tears are flowing from eyes like torrents of rain, and I am feeling all vacant in the world in your absence.
I know no one but Krishna is my Lord, and he shall remain so, even if he handles me roughly by his embrace, or makes me broken-hearted by not being present before me. He is completely free to do anything and everything, for he is always my worshipable Lord, unconditionally.
Haribo, Sri Siksastakam ki jai, Harinam Sankirtan ki
Jai,
jai, Panchatattva ki jai,
Jai,
Nityananda Prabhu ki jai, Sri Krishna Chaitanya
Jai,
ki jai, Jagat Guru Shila Bhaktivedanta
Jai,
Shila Prabhupada ki jai, Nitai Gaura Prem,
Jai.
Hari Hari Bo.